All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're looking closely at enterprise mechanics. As executive investment strategists, we constantly see that the true dividing line between organizations that scale and those that just stall out isn't necessarily their strategy, it's actually how they process information. So we're going to deconstruct exactly how high-growth leadership teams design and, more importantly, operationalize weekly executive scorecards to drive what we call extreme accountability. Welcome to the Upside Journal podcast. In 2026, domestic venture capital is struggling with extended exit timelines and dry powder gridlock. Yet, a sophisticated layer of cross-border diaspora business networks is quietly unlocking predictable, counter-cyclical returns in AI and climate tech. Today, we're breaking down the hidden alpha traditional funds are missing. So, here is our roadmap for today's briefing. We're going to systematically break down executive dashboard design across 4 distinct acts. First, the VC paradox of 2026. Next, information and talent verification. Then we'll look at the climate tech edge, and finally, the repeatable flywheel framework. I'll hand it over to my co-strategist to kick off Act 1. Thanks. Let's dive straight into Act 1, the VC paradox of 2026, and take a hard look at analysis paralysis. Now, in highly volatile environments, businesses rarely fail because they lack ambition. They fail because their decision-making processes degrade into these massive approval bottlenecks. Look at the stark contrast here. On the left, you got your traditional corporate dashboard. It is bloated, completely choked with lagging indicators, and just packed full of vanity metrics. But on the right, that's the predictive scorecard used by top-tier high-growth networks. It's lean, strictly capped at 6 to 10 metrics, and built entirely for high-velocity decision-making. It's a wild paradox, honestly, but metric proliferation actively destroys your strategic coherence. Think about this. Roughly 58% of top companies use digital dashboards, but they fundamentally confuse basic operational monitoring with actual strategic alignment. Throwing massive volumes of data at a wall just masks true variance detection. You end up gamifying KPIs, which completely obscures the real enterprise intelligence you actually need for focused resource allocation. Spot on, and that leads us perfectly into Act 2, asymmetric information and talent verification. This is all about separating actual signal from historical noise. To find that signal, leadership has to verify that their talent is actively managing the future, not just doing a post-mortem on the past. This fundamentally comes down to leading indicators versus lagging metrics. Leading indicators, think pipeline coverage, actually predict whether you'll hit future targets. Lagging metrics, like recognized revenue, merely report on what already happened. If you don't separate these, management teams will absolutely hide structural decay right behind last month's financial wins. So every single metric on an executive scorecard has to pass this one ruthless rhetorical forcing function. If this number moves 20% this week, who do I call and what exactly do I ask them to do? If no one in the room can answer that question, the metric does not belong on your weekly view, period. It's the ultimate test for talent verification and the fastest way to filter out useless vanity metrics like, say, gross page views. But for that forcing function to actually work in the real world, you have to establish incredibly explicit decision rights. Whether you use racy or rapid frameworks, achieving true operational leverage demands strict, single-owner accountability for every single tracked metric. When you detect variance, you simply cannot afford what we call consensus by fatigue. You need immediate, distributed execution from the named owner. Exactly. So let's look at how this plays out in the wild with Act 3, the climate tech supply chain edge. What you're looking at here is the precise anatomy of a counter-cyclical scorecard used by these highly sophisticated diaspora networks. This is a 4th-generation digital balanced scorecard architecture. Notice how it completely ditches legacy reporting. By using real-time AI engines, it unifies the financial, customer, internal process, and critical ESG layers into one cohesive view. It's not just reporting, it's an integrated strategy execution engine. If we zoom in, you'll see it perfectly balances 5 mandatory domains: revenue, cash, customer health, delivery, and people. But the secret sauce is the discipline. There is a strict ceiling of 6 to 10 actionable metrics total. So we're not just glancing at revenue, we are meticulously tracking run rate versus target and pipeline coverage. We aren't just looking at cash balance, we are scrutinizing trailing net burn. Now, I want you to pay very close attention to that people domain. Disengagement at the middle manager layer is literally the earliest leading indicator of organizational strain. It's a massive tripwire.
Traditional funds miss this entirely because they're obsessing over lagging financial indicators. But if manager-level engagement drops, operational failure is almost certainly right around the corner.
Which brings us to our final piece, Act 4, the repeatable flywheel framework.
Building the right dashboard is really only half the battle. Now you have to operationalize it. We use the Vanguard Intelligence Systems, or VIS protocol, to translate that raw dashboard data into rapid execution through a highly disciplined weekly cadence. It's 4 steps. 1. Broadcast the commander's intent with extremely strict guardrails. 2. Empower your edge teams to run decentralized microtests. 3. Detect variance using real-time kill indicators. And 4. Execute immediate operational intervention. Let's double-click on kill indicators for a second. These are observable tripwires that you convert directly from your most critical business assumptions. You tie them to explicit trigger thresholds and predefined actions: go, learn, or stop. By locking these in ahead of time, you completely strip the emotion and the analysis theater out of the boardroom. When a threshold is breached, intervention is immediate and objective. To actually embed this intelligence into your business rhythm, here's the execution playbook. First, you review those 5 to 8 core metrics weekly, and you do it in under 60 seconds. Second, you deploy 90-day execution loops with scheduled after-action reviews. Third, you let AI handle the heavy lifting for automated variance alerts. And finally, you explicitly tie any metric deviation directly to an operational intervention by that single accountable owner we talked about earlier. So, to pull all of this together, in the NEO era, networked, exponential, and orchestrated, decision advantage firmly belongs to the organizations that can compress their learning loops while maintaining absolute intellectual honesty. The real operational mechanisms of alpha generation, their speed, strict single-owner accountability, and rigorous data provenance. That is how you out-execute the market. Before we wrap, I want you to look at your own executive dashboard tomorrow morning and ask yourself a hard question. Are you actually managing the future, or are you just reporting on the past? Capital has become highly commoditized, but the infrastructure to execute high-trust, cross-border deal flow is rare. To get ahead of these macro signals and access our premium investor network, subscribe to the Upside Journal and join our membership communities. See you in the next Daily Drop.